Europe's boldest migration strategy isn't unfolding in Europe, it's happening in Africa. Countries like Rwanda and Uganda are at the center of controversial plans to reshape migration policies. But why these nations? How do these plans work? And do they really offer a real solution to Europe's migration challenges? The stakes are massive. For example, the UK's Rwanda plan has already cost taxpayers over $318 million without deporting a single individual. This isn't just about money. It's about the future of humanitarian law, refugee safety, Europe's unity, and much more. Let's break down the hidden costs of this high-stakes gamble. Migration remains one of the most contentious issues of our time. In 2022 alone, Europe processed over 700,000 asylum applications, overwhelming national systems and igniting political tensions. But as the surge escalated, far-right parties like Germany's AfD and France's National Rally gained traction, forcing mainstream leaders to adopt stricter stances. Therefore, policies such as Germany reinstating border controls and Hungary building fences became the norm. The idea of outsourcing asylum isn't new. In 2016, the EU struck a €6 billion deal with Turkey to curb migrant flows. This move shifted the focus toward externalizing migration control, but it did not solve anything. Instead, it cemented migration as a divisive political theme across Europe. Now, some European nations, including the UK, Denmark, and the Netherlands, proposed a new idea to outsource asylum processing, but not without controversy. So, how does this plan actually work? The premise seems straightforward. Instead of processing asylum seekers within European borders, some European countries propose relocating applicants to African nations. Rwanda became a focal point when the UK offered millions of pounds to support such a program. Under the UK-Rwanda agreement, asylum seekers arriving irregularly in the UK could be flown to Rwanda, where their claims would be processed under Rwandan law. If approved, they'd gain refugee status in Rwanda, not the UK. If denied, they'd face deportation to their home countries or elsewhere. Therefore, the program claims to deter dangerous migration routes and alleviate Europe's asylum system pressures. At first glance, this seems like a win-win. European countries could reduce irregular migration, while Rwanda and Uganda receive financial aid to bolster their economies. But critics argue that this solution merely shifts responsibility instead of addressing migration's root causes. Therefore, Europe risks undermining its commitment to international human rights laws by outsourcing asylum processing. You might be wondering, why did they choose Rwanda and Uganda? Well, both nations have histories of hosting large refugee populations. For instance, Uganda hosts over 1.6 million refugees, mostly from South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rwanda, though smaller, has also managed significant refugee populations. Their perceived geopolitical stability and willingness to engage in international agreements make them attractive partners. Rwanda's government has framed its participation as an opportunity to play a more significant role on the global stage, positioning itself as a champion of innovative solutions to global crises. In return, Uganda and Rwanda will receive significant financial benefits from European countries. The UK pledged over $140 million to Rwanda, while the EU allocates funds to support programs like the Emergency Transit Mechanism, which relocates migrants from Libya to Rwanda under UN supervision. On top of this, Rwanda will receive additional payments for each deportee. But here is the catch. Both Rwanda and Uganda also face considerable hurdles as they lack the infrastructure to accommodate large numbers of asylum seekers. Rwanda, for instance, processed only 228 asylum claims in 2020 compared to the UK's 19,000. Uganda, already hosting 1.6 million refugees, faces chronic underfunding and insufficient resources. In 2023, the UNHCR reported receiving less than 30% of the funding required to support refugee camps across Uganda. Therefore, this raises serious concerns about their ability to manage even more asylum seekers. So, what do you think about these plans? Is it a good idea? Well, the UK government claims this plan will break the business model of human traffickers and prevent deaths at sea. However, in November 2023, the UK Supreme Court declared the plan unlawful, citing flaws in Rwanda's asylum system, including its inability to guarantee deportees' safety. Despite this, the UK revised the agreement and passed the controversial Safety of Rwanda Act 2024, declaring Rwanda a safe country for deportees. Critics argue this plan still violates international law, including the 1951 Refugee Convention. Humanitarian organizations, including Amnesty International and the UNHCR, have condemned these plans. They argue that outsourcing asylum undermines the principles of responsibility sharing and humanitarian law. Evidence also suggests that deterrence measures like these rarely reduce irregular migration. Instead, migrants often turn to alternative, more dangerous routes. Politically, these plans are polarizing. Supporters call them innovative solutions. Opponents view them as betrayals of European values. But here's a deeper concern. If wealthy nations outsource asylum, it could set a dangerous precedent, pushing global refugee protections into crisis. And that brings us to the real costs of outsourcing asylum. These policies don't just raise ethical questions, they also risk legitimizing authoritarian regimes. For example, critics of Uganda's proposal highlight its controversial anti-LGBTQ+ laws and broader human rights abuses. Amnesty International has labeled Uganda a nation that actively suppresses free speech and assembly. Therefore, outsourcing asylum could inadvertently support oppressive governments. Moreover, the financial costs are staggering. Rwanda receives millions in direct payments, plus additional sums per deportee. Yet, with no measurable impact on migration flows, this approach increasingly appears to be a high-cost, low-return strategy. If outsourcing isn't the answer, then what is the alternative? Experts emphasize addressing the root causes of migration, such as conflict and economic instability. For instance, in a previous video, we explored Hungary's investment in Chad as a strategy to reduce migration pressures. However, questions remain whether this would really work. Check the link at the end of this video to watch this video next. Something that really may work is creating more solidarity and cooperation within Europe. The current system places disproportionate pressure on frontline states like Italy and Greece, which receive the majority of irregular arrivals. But a more equitable distribution of asylum seekers across EU member states could ease these tensions. Ultimately, Europe's gamble with outsourcing asylum forces us to confront difficult questions. Will these policies pave the way for sustainable solutions, or will they create more problems? Time will tell. One thing is clear, the stakes couldn't be higher for Europe, its partners, and the global refugee protection system.